All right. Well, looks like we've got a few folks. So with that, I'm going to get started. So first off, thank you everyone for joining us. This webinar will focus on finding alternative paths past the PhD. This webinar is sponsored by the newly minted Expand RIG, which stands for Exploring Professional Avenues in Science Education in Non-Traditional Domains. So my name is Tiara Worsley. I'm at Northern Virginia Community College, and I'm the chair of the RIG. And I'll let my co-chair introduce herself.
And I'm Sierra Morandi, co-chair of our fantastically newly minted rig, and I am a K-12 classroom teacher at Florida State's our lab school, our Florida State University schools.
Is Johan here?
Johan is not here,
Oh,
but
not here.
Johan is our
Okay.
treasurer,
Yes.
who is located out of Chicago.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, let us dig in. So first, we want to kind of explain to you what the expand rig is. So the purpose of this rig is to pursue an advanced science education work kind of outside those traditional academic institutions. And we want to create spaces for researchers who work in those non-traditional academic settings. Usually we refer to that as like outside of the tenure track, ranging from K-12 classrooms to nonprofits. And we really just want to promote networking, mentorship, as well as professional development among these diverse trajectories that we are taking, discovering. And we also want to highlight the scholarship that directly is engaging with practitioners and policymakers, as well as community work. And by broadening the field, we want to understand, the impact of research and elevating voices across all of these sectors, to really hear from the voices who may not be at the professor level at a university just yet. So we just want to hear from everyone and support researchers who are just navigating their careers and figuring it out. So kind of why did we start this rig? So a big thing for Sierra and I, and also what I was noticing, I think 2 to 3 years ago, I'm not sure exactly what year it was, but I used to be the co-chair of the graduate student committee. And I also, like many other grad students, was on the job market. And if you've been there, you understand just kind of how hectic it is. And what I was noticing at the conference was just that there was this really big growing interest in research kind of outside of that traditional 4 year academic setting. But I was also seeing, there was kind of less support for us when we weren't following a tenure track path. And it was leaving a lot of students kind of in uncertainty or confused or what should I do? Just how to navigate that career choice. And we're also seeing these challenges in identifying all the potential career paths due to such limited discussion outside of tenure track positions. So that is why we decided to start this rig. And now that we have been accepted, we just got our acceptance last year. Some of our big goals are to be able to openly discuss non-traditional paths to research. We want to strengthen those research opportunities between traditional and non-traditional institutions, as well as create a space for graduate students, as well as early career scholars to explore careers in science education research organizations. And we also really want to increase that visibility and collaboration among researchers within the NARST community. So just to explain a little more about our rig, we also want to discuss our plan of action. So some of the big things that we are working on right now within the rig is first to build membership because we just became official, so we want to let people know that we exist. We also want to find, established researchers and professionals that are outside of tenure track roles to kind of learn and explore what those diverse pathways are. I did hear someone's mic. I do want to say, if you do have a question, please put it in the chat. Sierra will be monitoring that for me. And there's time for a Q&A, but if you do have a question, so you don't forget it, just please be sure to put it in the chat. We also want to develop mentorship and professional development among those of us who possibly may be on the job market or wondering what those next steps may be. And we want to create opportunities for members to learn about professional roles that leverage their education research expertise, as well as helping participants seek the alternative sources of research funding and navigating some of the tensions related around, IRB oversight. If you're not at a university, how do you still get, your city training, or how do you fill out an IRB to ensure that you can proceed with your research? So to kind of dig a little more into kind of just where was the headspace at, I'm sure for most of us, when we signed up to do our PhDs, we all enrolled in these doctoral programs, and it was just kind of vested in us that we were all going to be tenure track. It was more of a question of, are you willing to move out of the state? Do you want to stay within the state? But there was never really a question of, what do you plan to do with your career? It was more, so where do you think you would want to work as a professor? Where do you want to get started at? And then, we would get on the job market around the time we were doing our dissertation. And if you haven't seen people experience this, or you haven't gone through it yourself, I'm sure anyone can tell you, it's a quite intense time, because when you're going for a tenure track position, you're going amongst a lot of other PhD students. And, it's kind of like you've got almost 3,000 people graduating with their science education PhDs, and there's about 80 positions open, and we're all going for the same thing. And it can feel a little daunting, it can feel intense, and you're just kind of left with, oh man, like, what do we do? Did I get this one? Well, what about the next one? And then we even dig, I think someone's mic might be on. Oh, I don't. Is this Osmat? If you could you mute your mic? But again, with those statistics, there's a lot of us graduating, there's a limited number of positions. And so, we're kind of met with these questions, for example, there's a paper that's too many PhD graduates or too few academic job openings, the basic reproductive number in academia. That's one of the big things we face, as well as NSF. If you look at this bottom quote, they've seen that only about 3.5% of PhD graduates in science and engineering are in tenure track positions 3 years after graduation. It's even more competitive for those in the social sciences. So what we are seeing, kind of like I said, is you've got a lot of people coming out, but there's just not that many positions, because even when you look at a university, usually if an opening becomes available, someone has moved or someone has retired, and now you got a bunch of people trying to go for that one position. And also, when I was working with the graduate student committee with NARST, I was posting jobs at one point on Twitter. I think it's now X. I was, promoting the jobs, and I was even seeing there's just not a lot of positions for all of us that are about to graduate. And that's just the people I knew. And there's definitely a lot more than just who I actually knew. And so what we were seeing is kind of this tension between, I want to continue research, but what if I don't want to continue on that tenure track path? What am I doing and what are my options? And it was causing a lot of tension, because also, we're kind of in this system where we are trained by mentors who are also tenure track typically. And, everyone they know is tenure track. So it's almost like, how do you even know about other opportunities if this is your environment for, the 4+ years that you're working through your doctoral studies? So it kind of leaves us in this job market uncertainty where we have to think about, what actually are the opportunities that are available for us. But then also we need to understand the possibilities while one main goal is kind of surrounding us throughout our studies. There's a lot of possibilities. As you saw from the statistic, there's 3.5% that go back to tenure track. So what are the other about 96% doing? So there's a lot of possibilities. And it does involve creating a new network because now you have to figure out, well, who has a job that I might be interested in? And what do they do? How do I reach out to them? Just what's the process look like? And you're probably also questioning, does this make sense for me as a person who maybe wants to step outside of the traditional pathway? Does it make sense? I just got this PhD. Does it even make sense for me to do something outside of a tenure track position? There's just a lot of questions that surround that. And one of the things that I like to suggest is yes, is starting a new network because I was on this journey. I quickly realized in year 4 when I was doing my dissertation and trying to look for positions, I did a lot of informational interviews where I would reach out to people um, that had jobs outside of academia, but they were still researchers. And, I would meet with them for about 30 minutes and just ask them about their job, what brought them there, what do they do in their daily work. And then I'd also ask them for recommendations. So every time I concluded talking with someone, I would also ask, do you know 3 to 4 people that you would recommend I reach out to learn more? So building a new network, it feels a little daunting, but actually you can learn a lot in the process. And that's still a way to build your network because once I reached out, people realized, oh, okay, you're going to be looking for a job. Let me keep that in mind. And so then if they had a position or they know something, they would share that with me. So then we kind of get into alternative pathways. So these are just some findings that I realized once I was having all these informational interviews with people. So one was alternative educational institutions, so community colleges. Currently, I work with a community college, and that has really opened my eyes up to some other opportunities for myself, as well as other opportunities that I like to share with people. There's also industry. You can go to research institutions such as, AIR. There's the private sector. There's government, federal, state, and local. If you were like me, I just thought government meant federal. And then now I've realized, oh, there's actually more. There's, every state has its own Department of Education, and there's more local or district level. And then also consider your nonprofits. Look at your museums, look at your NGOs. There's a lot of alternative pathways. I'm going to pause here and check, Sierra, are there any questions in the chat?
Not at this moment, no.
Not at this moment. Okay.
Oh, just kidding. So NGO is non-government organization, NGO,
Yeah.
non-government organization. They're usually non-profits, oftentimes are NGOs. But like they could be something that like maybe doesn't have their like 501(c)(3) that denotes them as a nonprofit, but they still operate outside of like a government agency or entity. It's a really good question though, Juliet. Back to you, Tiara.
There another one?
No, just a thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So again, just, once I kind of started talking with people and looking up jobs and, whenever you're at a conference or anything, if you're hearing someone speak or you're looking at who's in attendance, if their title or role sounds interesting, find them and reach out and just begin that connection so you can learn more about their pathway. And so here we have some current trends that we've been noticing with from things I would say I hear around NARST conferences when I'm around everyone and just in, exchange is we're seeing this growing need among grad students for support as they navigate career choices and job searches. So, when we're getting to that stage of what can I do, just even having, two to three things ready, like, hey, did you consider a postdoc? Or even just sharing what the process of getting a postdoc is. Like for many of you with postdoctoral positions, did you know that you can ask someone to create this position for you? Yeah. I think me and Sierra both, we asked. I'm not sure if Sierra asked. Yeah, I asked. I was finishing up and I asked my advisor, I said, is there any funding that I could possibly turn this into a postdoc as I'm finishing up? And luckily, they were able to turn that into a postdoc. And so I had 2 extra years to build on my doctoral work as well as get involved in, getting more involved in learning when I am not a student, what does it mean to be a researcher without, the 20-hour limitation and things like that. We're also seeing that postdoctoral scholars are also exploring a range of options, including both academic and non-academic career paths. So even like for myself, I knew at the time teaching wasn't at the top of my list, but for some of my colleagues, teaching was at the top of their list. So even navigating, what exactly do you want to continue working on once you graduate? Does it matter a lot for you to teach? Or do you want to continue deeply into research? Like even in some places, there's being a research assistant. You're not on the tenure track, but you're a research assistant. And, even knowing more about that, what does that mean? NSF has also shown increasing interest in supporting research at community colleges. This is one that I've picked up on because I thought I had to give up grant work once I stepped into my new role. And I'm still working through grants. I'm still interacting with students in capacities that I like to do. So now I'm learning, oh, there's a whole nother funding group and I'm learning more about state funding and even getting connected with industry partners. And that's a way to gain funding. So there's a lot out there once you actually start looking. And there's also educational organizations that serve as important research spaces. So all of your most important research work doesn't always happen at the university. There probably is one involved, but it can span way past that. So you just have to really expand what you're thinking about to see how all these opportunities can come together. Sierra, I saw you nod. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, just like a lot of these current trends, I feel like, especially in the space of like just graduated, newly minted doctoral graduates. Yeah. Right. That they have their PhDs and they're trying to figure these things out. Is that oftentimes we have this belief that like we have to be in the science education space. And with like this increase in supporting research at community colleges, there's also this huge uptake of like I hate using the word, but like hard STEM, like the hard sciences, are often looking for people who love doing this educational piece of their research. It's oftentimes the broader impact piece of like, we're going to turn this into curriculum or we're going to do this thing as biologists or as chemists. And like those educational organizations that those STEM folks are in, are really great spaces for us as science educators and STEM educators to also be in. I feel like it's not something I learned until well after I graduated, and I'm in this new weird wonky space between teaching and postdocing. That like someone was like, "Oh yeah, like you should just be in the biology department. You don't need to be in teacher ed to still do the things that you love." But yeah, sorry, I was just thinking
No.
it's
Yeah.
so good. But yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So then we're going to get into some misconceptions. So these misconceptions came from Sierra and I. These were thoughts we had as well as thoughts we kind of heard from others. So, one misconception, if I'm not tenure track, then how do I build my career? You can definitely still build your career even if you're not on tenure track. The biggest thing is just networking and having connections, and people can point you in the right direction. It may be more work on your part, but it's definitely not over because you didn't follow one pathway. Really diversify who you're talking to and see what they are doing in their career because it might just be one piece they're doing that you really want to get into. Just like Sierra said, a lot of people want outreach positions, and one thing I'm realizing, some of them haven't worked with in an educational background, so they want programs, but they have no idea how to set them up or what they should be looking for. And this is where you have that expertise where you can step in and say, "Oh, if you're, looking for a program, here's the things you need to consider." Also, it could align with some state standards, so this is where you can kind of really push yourself and meet those needs of what various people are trying to get. Another question that I had posed to me was, will I still be able to publish? So clearly, if you were tenure track, you were going to publish. If you are not, there's still room to publish. The question is, do you want to publish? How is your job set up to support you to publish? And just what does that look like? So for me, I've still been able to publish. I've been at this job now for about 2 years. I've still been able to publish. The timing on that looks a little different, but it can still happen. You do have your data. You can still use it. You can still publish, unless you're going for a special issue. Like there's no real deadlines on publishing. You just want to get the work out there. So it doesn't have to cut off just because you were not at a university. But what I will say is just ask whoever is involved with that publishing, like what does it look like? So, for example, if you want to continue to publish with your advisor, just let them know. I would like to still keep writing, but I am going to be shifting into a new role. But I am going to be shifting into a new role. And so, where's the time for that, or what could it look like? You also may be introduced to some new journals. If your job role shifts, maybe they're not looking for the more, research journals. Maybe they want more practitioner. So you can still do it. It just may shift where it's at. Another big question we had was, does my PhD make me overqualified for industry? I would say it depends on the type of role you're going for. Um, all roles may not need a PhD, and that is fine, but you have a lot of skills that you have obtained as a PhD. I say most notably, I think we make great program managers because we have to manage a lot of research and data. And so I like to say we're very organized. So you definitely have qualities that you just might need to transition some of that language on and say what that looks like. So, for example, in my role, I'm a STEM education coordinator. A lot of that is program management. And when I was a doctoral student, I was still doing, like a lot of that program management. I was program managing for students, K-12, at, Boys and Girls Club. But now I'm still managing a program at the post-secondary level, and I'm still using both skill sets to learn and to manage. So you can definitely utilize what you have been doing. It just might be in a different environment. And then another misconception, sorry, I have to move my Zoom camera. Is it questionable to have a PhD and not be within an academic institution? So again, this kind of goes with that, like people kind of questioning, like, oh, but why don't you want to go tenure track? Like, shouldn't you be like the rest of us? Or how are you going to manage that? So I say you have to really think about what is it that you want to do in your career. And when you figure that out, that's a question for you personally. How much does it matter to you about your PhD and what you're doing? Again, I'm not tenure track, but for me, my main goals are I always want to continue working with students and find places where I can fit my research, or if I'm put on another research project, how can I really use what I know and my focal points and my research background to maybe elevate and expand someone else's work. And where you can connect those dots, I think that's the part that matters. It's not as much, oh, well, I'm here in this position and I have a PhD. It's really, what do you want to make of your career and how do you see that coming together? I think Sierra wanted to add. There.
It's one of those things like being back in the classroom post PhD. Like, that was the first question I had from a colleague. Like, why are you even here? Like, you have a doctorate and you're back teaching middle school children. Like, teaching is the piece I won't give up. Like, I won't. I love working with the K-12 population, especially little weird middle schoolers. I love them so much that like I can't imagine not getting to do the work. And research is something I like to do, but kind of like Tira was saying earlier, it's something that like I know I want to publish on it, but it's on my own time frame and how the school year, like summer, it's when I do all my research work because it's what I can do with my schedule. But it doesn't mean that I have to give up any piece of the things that I do enjoy from the academia as a whole. You don't have to lose something to gain something else. And I feel like that's not discussed enough in our spaces. But yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure we've garnered up a lot of feelings and questions. So here's where we're going to transition into that Q&A. So some prompts we have are, what are some challenges that you may be experiencing? And then what are some topics or workshops that you would like to see this rig address? And I'm going to stop share so I can see you all and engage in conversation. Yeah. So what? Oh, there's Johan. Johan, introduce yourself. We called for you earlier, but we didn't see you.
Oh, hi there. Hi. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Johan. I met Tierra and Sierra. Oh, Tierra a few years ago. Sierra just this past year. I'm part of the rig. I'm a former postdoc now at Northwestern. I'm transitioning back to K through 12, which was my home before. Um, Being a postdoc, I was teaching physics while doing my doctorate. Um, And I'm here because I'm trying to figure out how to keep my toes dipped in this research space while I am teaching high school or middle school. I don't know yet, but one of them. So that's basically where I'm at. So nice to meet you all.
Oh, okay. So floor is yours. We are a small group, so you can probably unmute yourself, or if you prefer, you can put your questions in the chat. And again, feel free to ask what is on your mind.
Sorry.
Well, I can say something. Okay, no, you're saying something too. Do you want to go?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Sorry, I was getting questions about lunch from my kids, so I got a little distracted. That's why I was like talking over to the side, but I
That's
told them
fine.
to eat a PB&J. Um, so yeah, this is great. I'm so glad y'all are doing this because obviously like it's so important. It's something that's under recognized, I believe, because it's really important probably for researchers to think of themselves as high status, and typically teaching in the K through 12 space, in the college space is considered lower status. That tracks with race, that tracks with gender. And so addressing this head on and thinking about how we can confront, Sierra, you shared that story where someone said to you, why the heck are you here? You have a PhD. Like, that's outrageous. Because to bring people with research training into K through 12 spaces is like of incredible value for our society, and we need to like hold that up and also recognize it and reward it, not isolate, marginalize, and other it. And like you pointed out, Tiara, this is not this is not an issue that's isolated to a few, people who couldn't hack it. This is the vast majority of people who are trained in science education research are confronting issues like this. I myself was finishing my PhD, thought about going back to K through 12 teaching. I was a chemistry and physics teacher for 10 years. Managed to get an offer in a private school to be like the science department chair, and I floated to them the idea of continuing to like do research in my job, and they were like, "Whoa, no way." And I was like, "Wow," they wouldn't even think about it. And I wound up in a tenure track position in Sweden, where I've been for 5 years. And I've gotten tenure in Sweden, which is different than tenure in the United States. It's configured differently. But, I have to live in Sweden to be a science education researcher, and my family's in the United States, right? That's hard. That requires a lot of sacrifice. And we make sacrifices, but kind of hierarchizing ourselves where the tenure track is the top, I think is a way of hoarding privilege. And it happens way too much in our field and probably in other, disciplinary fields. And I'm really glad we're confronting it. So I guess I'm coming to this as like ally. But I'm also obviously very motivated to be able to support my own students, to know what their options are and to grow that network, because we need to break down the hierarchies. Because also, like, sorry, I'm going on and I'm probably boring people, but like within the tenure track, that's not a stable space. That's not an expanding space. And we can't be looking to that as the future.
So, sorry, I want to make sure. What your name is it? KT? Like
Mhm.
Katie? KT. Katie or KT? I want to make sure I
KT.
get this right. KT. Yeah. So I will say, as I appreciate you being here as an ally. I would say when I was a student, one thing that really could have supported me more is I already felt very out of place because I was coming into an education program and I was the only one that was not a licensed teacher. I had not taught in a school, in a formal school, and but I had done informal teaching, so every class felt very like, why am I here? What is my specialty? I don't know what I'm doing here. And slowly by slowly, I got in different classes that kind of helped me understand, oh, this is where I thrive. I tell everyone my community engaged research class was the moment I figured out, oh, this is my space. But as an ally, what I think I could have appreciated more from some of my professors and mentors is, when they would invite guests, bringing in guests that also were not other tenure tracks. So I think in all 4 years, we had one guest that she was not tenure track. And that was like the only representation I had. And then occasionally when I would be at conferences. So as we build our network, like we're definitely going to share everyone we're talking with. So I would just say, like, just having people kind of ready for them to talk to in whatever space that may be. Because again, like Sierra said, sometimes like people just judge your choices and they don't know why you're making them. So even when I said, oh, yeah, I don't want to go tenure track, the first thing everyone said was, oh, no, 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 but you would be good. And I said, oh, I'm not doubting I could not be a good professor. That's not the concern. I just don't want to. So it was an immediate, oh, you think you're not going to be good? And I was like, no, I think I would be great, but I just don't want to. And that's very different. So, just having one, just being a safe space. Okay, talk to me. What is it you want to do? And then, okay, I can connect you with these people to get you started. I think that's a great place. Um, Bjorn, sorry. I know you had unmuted.
Yeah, sorry, I was just kind of trying to fill out the silence a bit there. Um, but I'm here for a slightly different reason, I guess. I have a permanent position, but I find myself permanently employed to attract money from private foundations.
Mm.
And they're kind of taking over the research agenda. So I feel like I'm in my current job serving someone else's interests than those of the field that I thought I would be doing research in. So I'm kind of looking for inspiration to see what is it we learn with PhDs in science education. What is it we can contribute if the places like the place I work become untenable for someone like me who has a PhD in science education. Like I'm kind of looking for inspiration to see what else might I be able to or where else might I be able to contribute. I thought it was interesting, Tiara, to see you kind of list these different places, like the state's boards of education, I guess, was one of them. But also like what's up in the private sector? Does anyone know like what is being done? But maybe also to kind of imagine, envision different ways of doing research, a little bit like what I believe you might be hinting at, Katie, when you're talking about kind of lifting this notion that we can contribute with PhDs or with this research competence in other sectors while we're doing different things. I don't know. So that was why I was excited to see this workshop posted a couple of days ago.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. If I, I would also say one place like your skill set I'm seeing is I feel like because I have come from a PhD background, almost when I'm looking at different settings, I can see the loopholes that people haven't caught on to yet. So even like with your training, sometimes people just don't know where to look for extra funding or how to write up grants. So even that can be a space where you can be an asset. Like we had a person on our team, really, he came in saying, I know how to write grants. Have y'all ever considered it? And my team was like, what are grants? So he really helped them like understand what that process is. And now, they've been able to figure it out. And now they continuously are working on getting grants. So that's a great skill set to have. Knowing how to write grants and even like, did you consider funding elsewhere than the usual sources we always hear about? So definitely a good skill set there.
I'd like to add a
Oh,
topic. Um, I
yeah.
think one topic could be what does research look like if you're not in the academic world, I guess. And I think there's backing for that track from the NARST leadership. And I say that because the president is my advisor, was my advisor, and she knows my plight of having to find a tenure track position and then just how hard it is to find a position. And when we had a conversation at NARS in Seattle, and she said, the space of for research that is not within the academe is untapped. And she said, us old folks, referring to her and the leadership, we don't know what that looks like because they've been steeped in the whole academic track of research. And then she said, it's your guys' job, looking at me and then looking at you all's, to figure out what that looks like. So I think there is a lot of support. I know personally Maria um, understands the plight of all of us, that it's a shrinking market and the positions are just not there anymore. And so we have that backing. And so, but what stuck with me with that conversation was that you have to reimagine what that research looks like. And so to me, it's like, oh, well, what does that look like? Can that be a workshop? Can that be something that we can all just kind of learn from people who are doing it outside the academe? What does that look like?
I just had a sort of a question. Like, is there a space to be like um an independent researcher? Like, it seems like you can't it's very hard to say write a grant if you don't have backing from an institution or whatever. And I was just curious, is there even a space for that?
So I would say it depends on where that grant is coming from and what their requirements are. Shapes a lot of how that goes. So like for like one thing I'm trying to probably figure out for you all, I'm the guinea pig, is like even getting like city training. Like I've left my university. How do I still get that city training so I can keep that research in a certain type of way that I like to do it? Um, so I'm looking into that. I have learned, if you didn't know, you can literally purchase um a license from city to keep that, as well as now I think we're shifting here. I think Sarah's also helping me kind of look into this. Like, how do you even obtain IRB if you're not somewhere that has an IRB office? So we are currently looking into that because it has come up because some people have said, I'm ready to do research, just I don't have these certain parts in play. Like, how do I get the IRB? And if you do partner with a university or someone who has it, how do you, keep your work from just getting usurped? I was just watching House of Dragons. Like, how do you keep it from getting taken from you? And I think that comes with, again, like building that relation. Oh, yeah, sure. So, thank you, Katie. So, the city training for clarify, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what the is CITI. I don't know what the letters stand for. But for most of us, when we're at the university, when we start engaging in research, if we're looking at any data that has been collected, or we are collecting data ourselves, we have to do a training that says we know how to interact with our human subjects and how to be ethical. Thank you. Sierra has put it in the chat. Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative. Thank you. But you do a training to make sure, you're ethical with your research and you know what you're doing. You're not going to just go out here and cause harm to people. And so it's a certificate that says this person has done the training. They know how to collect their data. They can now go forth, look at people's data. They know how to keep it confidential. They can conduct research. That's something we usually have to do. And so now, per this rig and other people, yes, it's good for about 3 years. Yep. I'm on the hunt figuring out how to do it. Um, and so with that, just how do you maintain doing that? And also with IRB, and I think, a lot of it is just conversation and who can you bring in? So back to what you were saying, Rachel, like let's say you go for a grant and they say, oh, well, you need to make sure you have a school partnership of some sort. Like you can ask them, is there a certain type of school? Like what, just what's required to even be considered? And once you can figure out all of that, then you can move forward because different places have different requirements as far as that. And yes, Katie, I saw your message and I see your hand raised. So yes, you can jump in.
Sorry, I had my hand raised to actually make another comment.
Oh, okay.
But I can't remember what it was, but Sierra, or no, sorry, Rachel, I think that like different grants definitely treat whether you have an institutional affiliation different. Like I've looked at like a book writing grant from the Venner Grain Foundation, which is anthropology. They definitely don't care if you have an institutional affiliation. And it's pretty clear. But other funding bodies definitely want you to have that, or you need it. The thing that you also would need to think about though is like having access to a library. And so, but I know that like different institutions will call you a visiting researcher or a visiting scholar basically and give you some access to some university resources just based upon maybe a relationship that you have with them or some like small amount of teaching that you do. So, and then just on the topic of, I guess this would be general information because I'm not sure like what the entire group, like what your geographic makeup is, but like in Sweden, the IRB, which is called like ethics, something ethics approval there. They use different like terminology, is centralized through the government. And so if you have a project you want to do, you go to the essentially the federal government agency, tell them what you want to do, you pay them $500 and then they say yes or no. So different countries, but that would be to do research in Sweden. So, I mean, but different countries have very different setups. And so you might be looking at quite a bit of variation there. But I guess if you didn't have an institutional affiliation in Sweden, that doesn't necessarily matter. You could, but you do need money, obviously, to support yourself and to do your research. So that would be a question of where is that coming from?
Thank you. Alex, I see your hand up. We're coming to you next. I want to make sure I give this PSA before we all start to leave. We're coming back to this conversation, kick it off with Alex. But before we go, first, thank you for being here. If you want to continue receiving updates from us, Sierra is going to drop a link in the chat. That is our interest form as we're trying to build our membership. If you would just fill that out, it helps us know who is in our rig, which is information we have to report back to NARST. Also, we are looking for a secretary for our rig. So if you are interested, please reach out. There's also a question in that interest form that says, are you interested in being secretary? Essentially, we would just need you to attend meetings, take meeting minutes, or take notes during those meetings. We'll work together on our written report to be submitted to the research committee for NARST, helping us monitor and maintain membership. We just started, so the numbers are fairly low, so pretty easy to lift. And then communicating with the members as needed. This will probably kick up more during conference time just because all of the rigs will have things going on. So we just want to make sure information is getting communicated. And, just working closely with the board, which is Johan, Sierra, and myself. So if you are interested, please check that box. And okay, Sierra has put the link to the interest form. And then I'm going to add my email. If anyone wants to reach out to me. Yes. Okay, I'm going back. Oh, sorry. Anyone have questions about secretary or interest form? It's more of a Google Doc just so we can keep up with who is interested in our rig. We're slowly getting into the process of all the official things that need to happen. If no one has a question, I will go back to Alex. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think this is a fascinating conversation. I think the one thing that I wanted to add, and maybe, excuse me, to add on to KT's comment, I think one of the things that you'll find, some grants require that you have cost share. So you can't use the grant to fund your salary, a salary of a person. It can only be used for the project itself. So I think the funding opportunities are out there. Unfortunately, this current administration, and I know we're not supposed to get into politics, but this current administration has really taken the hatchet towards the Department of Education. Hopefully, when we see a transition occur and we have an administration that actually values education, then we will see some change in funding going back into the Department of Education. So I think it is kind of a tough time to be in education. From the funding side or from the grant side or being an independent scholar, I think it really comes down to networking locally. I think a person needs to network with their institutions that they have within their own area. And I think the niche that you can create for yourself is actually being a specialist. And I think I'll go back to Tiara's comment. If you are a grants person, if you've had success with writing grants, then you somehow need to basically have a business card that says, I am a grant specialist. The PhD, I think that people take the PhD a different way, but I think if you can kind of say, here is my skill. Here's the skill set that I bring to the table. And if you can market that skill locally and become known for that skill, I think that'll help you. IRB is an issue. And if you try to do research in a K-12 setting, I'm running into it right now where the answer is basically big fat no. And so I'm going to have to figure out my research approach and try to find other institutions because my own home institution is not going to allow me to do any research at all. But that's just the reality of my institution. So maybe I can find another one that'll let me do that. So I don't want to monopolize the time, but I want to thank everyone for being here and sharing their concerns. Unfortunately, I didn't realize the number was so low, Tierra. I didn't know it was 3.5%. I thought it was more like 10. But I didn't realize that the numbers were so daunting. So, but hey, we have to figure out how to take lemons and make lemonade. And so I'll close with that. It was nice meeting everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, you segued us into another important thing that I'm going to let Sierra tell you about.
Yeah,
Okay.
really fast while we're on this conversation. I know it's not everyone's favorite one, but it is a really important thing. NARST, if you're not aware, the US, the federal government is trying to change our federal grant process. The Office of Management and Budget, OMB, NARST submitted a comment on the OMB rule, but I highly encourage all of you as NARST members to submit independent comments as well. I'm not because I'm not publicizing anything on behalf of NARST. They've already done it, but you should have gotten an email on the 10th, on Friday, that says NARST submitted a comment on the OMB rule, and then it has the link to where you can submit further comments. These grant rules change everybody's ability to do research, and the oversight is a lot. And so I encourage you all, if research is something you're super passionate about, to just go give it a look-see at what they're suggesting. But yes, we appreciate all of you and your time and your energy in chatting with us today. Tierra, do you have closing thoughts?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I'm trying to gain traction. We are currently in the process of thinking about what we want to do for NARST. It always seems so far away until it's in 2 weeks. So we have to start early. So honestly, we appreciate any feedback. If there are things you honestly want to know, like for example, I have a CV. How do I even put that into a 2-page resume? What matters? That's a big thing. We did a workshop on it at the last conference in March, April. Yeah, we did a workshop on that. Like, how do you translate what we know how to do into something else? So if there is anything, please do put it in that form or email me. Here, I didn't go back to the slide set. Sarah has an email too. She can drop it in there, Johan, if you want to reach out to us. We're still working on things, but yes, I appreciate you for coming. Hope you stick with us. Think we can still get into questions. Oh, Jorn, yes.
Just a quick one. How many members do you have currently in the rig?
So officially now, I think it may be. Actually, I'm not sure because last year when we did this, it was more of a if you're interested. And so now that we've just started, like literally they just approved us. So I'm not sure what the process is of officially saying here are our members, which is why we're creating a list. I think the only thing is you just have to be a member of NARST to say you want to be a member in this rig. So we're building it. I'm probably going to reach out to everyone who has signed the interest form and just remind them, hey, we're official now. So if you officially you're now considered an official member. So I think as long as you're a member of NARST, so I think that would put us maybe around 20, 25, 20 to 30.
We had 33 on the interest form. So
33 on the interest form. There we go.
Roughly, so long as they don't contest being a member of the rig, because if they're interested, I'd like to assume that they want to be a member of the rig. But that's roughly where we're at with that.
Yes.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking, like, it sounds like
Yeah.
it's kind of important with engagement in the rig right now, like at this stage. And I'm like, depending on how many people there are like different options that suggest themselves. So is this like, have you thought about making a Slack community or something that could kind of allow an ongoing discussion of various topics? Because I think there are like three things at stake at the moment. Like, what could be something that the rig does at the next NARST meeting, and like, what is the rig for? And then, like, Rachel, you kind of started a very concrete discussion about like how do you work as an independent researcher? That could be kind of a whole discussion thread where people have a lot to offer, I guess.
Yeah.
Or where do you engage with each other outside of this Zoom room?
Yeah. We hadn't considered a Slack, but I have now put a note on our list. And Rachel, you asked a question. Personal website. What should be there? What platform use?
Oh, it's just an idea for like something people might want to know that we could do something on. I'm not asking the question right now.
Oh, sorry. You mean like for the rig or like for yourself as promoting yourself?
Well, yeah, I just you were asking for ideas about what people might like to know.
Oh,
And I don't
gotcha.
think we have time to talk about that today. I just
Oh, okay. I got you.
thought,
Thank
well,
you.
as a grad
space for
student,
workshop.
I was never trained or given a platform on my university to make a website. And I realized that when people want to promote themselves or show what, I mean, they need a place to do it, but there isn't,
Yeah.
we don't get trained to do that, at least in my program.
No. Okay. No, me neither. Thank you. We will definitely write that down. I'm sure Sierra's already written it down. Yes. Thank you. Again, I'm going to be very mindful of time. We're at the last minute, but thank you all so much. Please fill out the form. Myself or NARST will send something to follow up after this. And again, reach out via email if you do have any questions. Thank you all, and I will let you get back to your days.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Thanks,
doing
everybody. It was nice meeting you. See you guys at NARST.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.